Yesterday afternoon, I was totally livid at the EU, at the Commission, for their behaviour over Article 16 and effectively putting a border between mainland, the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. And it was good to see that so were lots of Remainers. So regardless of your position on Brexit, it's very healthy to see that instead of breaking into defense of the EU on every single action, lots of leading people from the community just said, no, that's wrong. It's not just wrong because it gives succor to the Brexiteers and whips up all of that debate. It's wrong on principle in order to go and behave like that. And the EU did roll back later on, but not before lots of people had tried to say, this is proof that Brexit was the right thing to do. Which of course it's not. This was not one of the fundamental issues about Brexit. This is something that has come along since and is all about how you handle vaccine distribution with the EU's contracts with AstraZeneca and how that's handled. But I think, I just want to say, I think it's good and encouraging, and it's the right attitude to say, yes, the EU's behaviour was wrong and cack-handed on that. Yes, I still think Brexit's a disaster. The both can be true. In fact, the both are true. So let's go through some of that, because I think it is important to always criticise when you see something done wrong on whatever side. And yes, of course, I know Boris Johnson has threatened to do the same just 2 weeks ago, and he said he'd do it without hesitation. And yes, I know that the UK last year blocked between 80 and 100 vital medicines from being exported to other countries. And that is medicines nationalism. And that is something that I would condemn. And that is why I'd also condemn it if I thought that the EU or other member states or anywhere in the world was going to block contracts that have been written with other parties or behave in a similar way. And here's the thing, because we expected of Boris Johnson. We know that he lied to the Queen, was prepared to break international law, repeatedly lies, is prepared to engage in measures like this. In fact, we get tired of calling it out all the time. But we actually had rather higher expectations of the EU, because throughout all of the negotiations, for example, Barnier had been impeccable in style and class and solidity. It never looked like the EU sort of lost their heads over anything. So last week, at various points, either from the German government or the EU, it has looked a bit different, and that sort of unsettled us a bit. But it's in no one's interests to exacerbate the tabloid press have been like awful, but in the long run, this is only going to hurt all of us. So let us go and have a look at why that may be the case. First of all, the whole notion of a race is a bad thing in terms of management overall. Yes, I mean, you want every country to go as quickly as possible. And yes, you can make international comparisons for vaccine rollout and how efficient systems are. That's important. When you study health services research and health systems research, you're always making international comparisons. So we should be doing that on vaccine rollout, on death rate, on testing capability and testing rate, on long COVID, on treatments that we're providing, the lot. All of that is good. But at the end of the day, if we're all aiming for recovery, then we want to ensure, as to be fair, the UK government and the EU have both been saying, we're not safe until we're all safe, until we get vaccination across the continent and then wider around the world. It's only then when you can begin to open up your travel for tourism and for business. It's only then when everyone's economies get back together. So that's what we should be focusing on. So this notion that somehow this vaccine row is a rallying point for Brexit. I know Nigel Farage thinks it is. And then I saw Piers Morgan have a bit of a wobble and say it's unified Leavers and Remainers about Brexit. It's made everyone see them as selfish, ruthless, arrogant twerps. Well, it's not quite right to go fully ad hominem there. Everyone's got their backs up at the moment. They've made one mistake, or maybe a couple of mistakes over the last week. But of course, the EU also has responsibilities to its own citizens in order to check the quality vaccines, get it rolled out as quickly as possible, check the safety, and also what the EU has taken on is much more responsibility than the UK's taken on. The UK is just, taking care of itself by however it can. Gimme, 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 I want to take care of myself. Whereas the EU is trying to stop the very dynamics happening between the UK and the EU happening all over the continent, with Germany and France doing bigger deals with pharmaceutical companies than smaller countries can do, and prioritizing themselves and their own 100 million first before anyone else gets any. Can you imagine if the EU wasn't there and all of these nation states took this aggressive auctioneering attitude for trying to get positions in a queue before other countries? It would be a mess. And so it makes me think when people say, all this comparison of, oh, isn't that good that we left, because now we can roll out even though we had much more disastrous levels of death and the virus running rampant and other systems are being broken, and we've pushed elderly people back into care homes with coronavirus. Nevertheless, isn't it good that we've done this? I mean, I think that it's quite sad that previously we had the European Medicines Agency actually in London, and it was tightly paired with our MHRA, our own national regulator. They worked in tandem, and our MHRA is extremely high quality. And that working together, I would like to think that if we were back in the EU, then that would mean that we are supercharging what the EMA was doing, because that's how it always was before. And for me, the thing that I object to most about Brexit is the selfish nature of it. We're such a great country, therefore we should stick two fingers up to everyone else. No, I think we're a great country. I think scientifically we're a fantastic country. And that's why I think we have responsibility, not just to ourselves and our citizens, but capability and responsibility to be a good partner within our continent and then also around the world. And so our mindset should be more geared towards that. Think about the beginning of the pandemic, where we saw it really, really kicking off in Italy, and then German planes and military planes flying them to Germany for treatment, or the Austrian government saving up for PPE and masks and so forth to help out the Italians. Croatians as well. There was a whole network of solidarity initiatives. We weren't in any of those. Why not? Because we're just scrambling around for ourselves. Similarly with, Greece, when Greece had problems with the EU all those years back, and then that was used as an excuse for Brexit. Well, what were we doing to help out? The Greeks didn't even want us to leave when they were polled on the matter. So I don't think any of this is an argument for Brexit at all. I find it very certainly, there has been no barrier put up. There has been no single jab denied from the British population because of this so far, or no money lost because of it. There was only the EU demanding this transparency so it could see the system. And it looks like AstraZeneca made a few more promises than it could actually carry out, or as someone put on Twitter, sold the same bike on eBay twice. Making promises to both the UK and the EU about where the production would come from and who gets bagsies on what. So that is all fair enough to ask those questions, but it is wrong to be early on flying kites about, we will block supplies to other countries and things like that. You don't go diving into that. And that's why mid last week I was calling that out as wrong. And that's why the Article 16 stuff was wrong. And I was reassured to see lots of people calling it out on that. But none of it, and we've got a long way to go on all of this with all this vaccine rollout, and all of this is toxic and damaging. But it doesn't, that hasn't been much cost so far, so it certainly doesn't validate 200 billion wasted on Brexit and Brexit preparations and funding pizza companies to run ferry services and 50,000 customs agencies, and not fully preparing for all of the chaos and the carnage that our farmers, that our fishermen and shellfish exporters and other foodstuff exporters are all having to deal with at the moment. And let's also think about consequences here in terms of our relations and what we need going forward. We just have signed a Brexit deal, a secondary Brexit deal about the trade going forward. And there are parts in that haven't been finished off, about financial passporting, that hasn't been tidied up for the financial sector, or data adequacy, or recognition of qualifications. That all needs to be done now. You can't do that in such a toxic climate where you had hostile negotiations and then threats to break international law over it, and then threats to recognize the EU ambassador saying, no, that's not a sovereign entity, after having done all of your negotiations on the basis of we want to be respected as sovereign equals. What is that? So the trust was at a really low ebb, and that factors into screw ups and hostility on both sides, which is unproductive for all of us. In fact, the Conservative MP, Tom Tugendhat, put it very well and said, the reason why this Article 16 thing has popped up is because clearly there isn't trust there. There's a lot of mistrust. That is bad for both of us going forward. We really need to think about how we rebuild relations. And for me, as a scientist, it hurts because the scientific community is international. If you think about these first two vaccines to come online, the Pfizer one, the BioNTech Pfizer one, and then the Oxford AstraZeneca one, they are both fantastically international efforts. They're beacons of what humanity should be and collaboration should be. The BioNTech Pfizer one, two Turks set up a company in Germany. It's funded for this vaccine by the European Investment Bank. It's manufactured in Belgium. It's done in partnership with Pfizer, an American company, with a Greek CEO, and then manufactured in the EU and shipped across the channel to us, and the UK being the first to sort of sign it off. And then the AstraZeneca vaccine, well, AstraZeneca is a Swiss-British company with a French CEO that worked with Oxford, where the team is truly international. And again, with both of these vaccines, they've been tested in clinical trials all around the world, including in South Africa and South America. So that's what it should all be. And with the knowledge in mind that we all need to move collaboratively and quickly in order to cover first the most vulnerable and then the rest of the population, and then deal with any variants that come up, we're on a long path altogether, and we should be approaching everything in that spirit. And one of the big beefs that I have with the media at the moment is that they are so poor at doing that themselves. They like to get into argument porn at the drop of a hat. It's clickbaity stuff. No damage has been done yet whatsoever, and yet this has thoroughly occupied all of our time. Yesterday, it was reported another 1,200 and something people died in the UK of coronavirus, and yet no one's paying attention to that. Oh yeah, we did a day at the 100,000 mark, but now we've moved back to the arguments. Brexit is damaging lots of industries all over the country right now. It's not just important to highlight that for the sake of, oh, we told you so, whatever, but each and every one of those industries, whether it's shellfish, whether it's fishing, whether it's cheese manufacturing, whether it's IT, whether it is different aspects of farming, like pigs and sheep, right? those need to be highlighted so that pressure can be put on the right place for those industries which we all want safeguarded to be safeguarded. But yet that's hard work to go out with cameras and tell those long form stories and look at the actual paperwork. It's much easier to wax lyrical about, you know, international battles lazily in the media. So I think the media, instead of getting themselves in a tizzy getting excited about all of this, I do think we need a lot more responsible analysis about where we are at the moment. What is everything that is happening at the moment that is genuinely impinging upon us, and how we as a society can help build back better, if you will. But we also need to build back better with all of our neighbours, particularly around Europe, where we could do so much to help. We could do so much to help if we had that outward looking, responsible attitude. And I think that's what we badly need, because otherwise we can crow till our heart's content, but is going to do us no favours in the long run.